Hey everybody, it's Thomas34. Today is September 30th, 2015. I'm here with a look at your forecast weather discussion for today. And take a look at this screen if I can get this camera to adjust properly for me. Take a look at this screen right over here, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but this is the forecast track of Hurricane Joaquin here, or Joaquin. I don't know how they pronounce it. You see how the cone of uncertainty grows as you work your way closer to the eastern seaboard, and it goes from Rhode Island and a little bit of eastern Massachusetts down into northern North Carolina, Virginia, Delaware, Maryland. I think this is where the storm is going to end up going. This is where, if you look at the ensemble models, most of them kind of bunch up here along the Delaware, Maryland area and the Chesapeake Bay area. And I think somewhere in the left side of the cone, right over here, more towards the left, is where the landfall is going to be, because we have a blocking high over here. It's not listed on here, but I just know that there is one right there, and so that's going to force this more east. There's also potential that this storm could kind of get caught up in a storm system that'll be coming in from the west later on in the week. If that does happen, well, essentially this storm will probably lose its tropical characteristics and just become a very heavy rain producer. But if not, and if this storm entirely acts by itself, I think it can maintain hurricane intensity even as it heads up the coast. But if it interacts a little bit more with the system that will be developing off to the west and kind of combining with that system, then maybe it will just simply be a heavy rain producer. But either way, we'll see impacts right here in southern New England, including Connecticut and New York. So that is certainly something that needs to be monitored. I think we're going to have a lot of rain over the next couple of days, and if this materializes here, even if it doesn't directly impact Connecticut, there will still be some pretty big waves and coastal flooding, and probably high winds as well, because when you're on the right side of a storm, if it tracks to the left, on the right side of the storm here, that typically means that you're going to see a little bit higher wind gusts here. So wind gusts, damaging wind gusts, and coastal flooding is the highest probability as of right now with this storm system. And as far as tropical storm force winds, this is a very, very small map here, but we can actually open it in a new window, and we can make it a little bit bigger, and you could see maybe a little bit better. This is the tropical storm force wind speed probabilities. In other words, how likely are we to see tropical storm force winds with this system? Well, the darker the shading of green and yellow, that's where you start to get into a higher probability of tropical storm force winds, and this has been expanding further inland ever since I looked at it earlier in the morning, and now it's all the way into Maine, with the slight possibility that you might see tropical storm winds out as far as the southern reaches of Maine. But this is continually expanding, and now it is seeming more and more likely that here in Connecticut we will see some tropical storm force winds, and that's why this is a real threat right now. Again, even if it's an indirect threat to Connecticut, you got a Category 1 hurricane coming in, you still need to be taking it very seriously, because then that translates to a pretty strong tropical storm force wind gusts. The weaker side of tropical storm force winds is 39 miles an hour, so that doesn't really tell you much. But when there is that range can go all the way up to 73 miles an hour, so that it's important to keep that in mind here. So tropical storm force winds starts to go to 38 miles an hour and go up to 73, because once you got 74, that's of course a hurricane, and we're not anticipating to see winds probably above 65 miles an hour at the most, but still, that is capable of knocking out power, and that is capable of doing a lot of damage. And again, this is This is the time period is still a little bit uncertain because this storm system will kind of slow down as it reaches us here in southern New England and interacts with land. But we're definitely keeping an eye on this thing by Friday evening, as this will be within striking distance by then. Probably not really affecting us until Saturday and or Sunday in terms of rain and wind. I just want to say there will be another system that will be coming on in as well on top of this one. And like I think I mentioned this already earlier on how they interact with each other will also have a direct effect on the intensity of the storm system, ultimately how severe the impacts are in Connecticut. The more they combine, I think the less impacts that we will have, the less severe impacts we will have, because there'll still be impacts here. They just may be a little bit less severe because once you combine a regular non-tropical storm system with a tropical one, it's enough to disrupt the flow. You disrupt the flow of the tropical entity with the non-tropical entity, and although that moisture might combine and create a bigger swath of rain, ultimately it will actually mean weakening. So we hope that will happen. But again, if that doesn't happen, if this storm system acts alone, then we have a better potential of seeing a little bit of a hurricane striking the mid-Atlantic, potentially even southern New Jersey coast. So that is something that we have to keep an eye on. And then for the north, into New York City and southern Long Island and even southern New England, that's where we'll be seeing lesser impacts, but still pretty significant ones at that. Keep it tuned. It's been Tomahawk 34. That's been your latest weather discussion on Hurricane Joaquin. And today, again, is we're tracking this thing for you, and we'll have the updates. I'll probably do one on Friday to see how everything is going.